Here's what some people are saying about the Projection Booth podcast.
The Projection Booth is single-handedly the greatest film podcast you could ever listen to or could possibly want.
Top notch. 5 stars. This has quickly become one of my favorite film-related podcasts. Always interesting.
A completely unpretentious yet fully comprehensive look at films from all genres.
The Projection Booth podcast, with new episodes available every week at projectionboothpodcast.com.
You are listening to the In the Mouth of Dorkness podcast. Here are Brad, Lisa, Brian, and Darren.
Welcome to another edition of the It Modcast podcast. With me is Brian Young, the Turtle Dork.
Happy Friday, everybody.
And also joining us is Lisa Gullickson, Wife Dork.
Hello.
Yep. And Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
Can you touch this? No, 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 no. Ladies, can you touch this? No, 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 no. The law says you can't touch, but I see a lot of lawbreakers out there.
And I'm your host, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, and welcome to the It Modcast podcast, Fistful Friday, not homework cast.
So
This is the Fistful Friday
so
cast.
Brad, you've been watching Magic Mike all week?
All week, back to back. Ass to ass, some might say.
Whoa. And this,
Nobody says that, except my friend Keith David.
And contrary to the conversation, this Fistful Friday is Oscar related. We are
Famously snubbed Magic Mike.
Fistful of Oscars. In preparation for the upcoming Academy Awards, we have our top 5 Oscar. So, what's the criteria? Your top Oscar picks or Oscar snubs or just Oscar?
All that stuff.
Oscar topics.
Oscar topics.
All right.
Nominees, snubs, favorites,
Yeah.
least favorites.
Yep.
Oh.
All right. So, with that in mind,
I just made that up right now, Brian.
Oh, okay.
That's what we're doing.
Okay, because I picked my top 5. You said favorite
That's
winners?
what I
That's
said
fine.
originally.
Okay.
all right. So, what's your number 5?
I got a few on this list, but let me go and start with 1997, which is for the movies from 1996. That would be Cuba Gooding Jr. winning for Jerry Maguire and best supporting actor.
Show me the money. I
Show
know that.
me the money. And basically just Rod Tidwell, I think that was his name in the film. Like, his character is basically how Cuba Gooding Jr. was when he won that award. It's just really excitable. I don't know if that's a word, but I'm going to say it. He was extremely excitable and getting up on stage and just the sheer joy. And I remember I was in Ocean City during that year because me and my friends took a vacation to Ocean City for like, I can't remember what it was for, but yeah, and I remember hearing that he won and turning on and watching his speech, his acceptance speech, and it was just a joy to watch. I can't remember who he was up against that year, but I thought he was great in Jerry Maguire. I mean, it's weird looking back on that film like 21 years later. I wouldn't think a performance like that would win an Academy Award, but it's fun that he won. Unfortunately, he really couldn't do anything with that Oscar because he made Snow Dogs and a whole bunch of straight-to-DVD movies.
I love Boat Trip.
Boat Trip, yeah. I mean...
That played theatrically, Brian. Don't deny me Boat Trip.
No, you're right. But I don't know who his agents were, but he made some extremely bad decisions after winning that Oscar. I mean, we've seen that with winners before, but, you know, que sera, sera.
Hey, he came back kind of in The People versus O.J. Simpson.
Yeah.
He is the weakest element of that series. But, you know.
What? I don't even know if that was a backhanded compliment or just you just.
I was continuing the slap.
Let's say you just angled your hand a different way. Like,
Karate chop.
all right, Lisa, you're number 5.
I've never liked that guy.
My number 5 is a plug for a future, I don't know why I do this in my fistful, but a plug for a future ItMod homework episode, and the film is Babette's Feast.
Yeah.
The 1987 winner of Best Foreign Language Film. It was the first Danish film to win, which was followed in 1998 by Pelle the Conqueror, which I have not seen. And then another Danish film in 2010, In a Better World, has won. So there's been 3 Danish winners. But this is a film that weirdly we watched in my house like every few years. Like this is like a film that my family revisited. And I think we enjoyed the food porn element of it. There is a huge feast scene as the climax of this movie, and you get to watch all of these people who believe that indulgence is a sin before God, and they're really just enjoying this food, and you can't get more like forbidden pleasure than that in context of a film about Puritans, I suppose. And then also, but like another theme of this film is like challenging religion and challenging those perspectives, which I think was very interesting in my house. So I think that it's going to make for a lot of interesting conversation. And I think that it also represents how I feel like I wish I could be more active in watching Best Foreign Language Films nominees in general. Because this year, all I've watched was Tony Erdmann, which I did enjoy a lot. But I did not get to see A Man Called Ove, which did show at last weekend, but it was when I was working, so I couldn't see it. I know that our Oscar dork Lindsay had gotten to see The Salesman, but I had not gotten to see any of the nominees, and I would have enjoyed having a perspective on this particular category.
I mean, the reality is, we touched a bit on this on our previous Oscar cast episode, that when it's time to see the Academy Awards on the television next Sunday, or this Sunday coming up, they haven't played for us. They are just not available to American audiences when the contest is upon us. The trick is just continuing to watch as much world cinema as possible. And I know that's something that is one of our resolutions this year, is just to reach out beyond the United States, because there's a lot of great and varied stories being told away from Hollywood.
Some of my favorite foreign language films have been nominees and winners, like Pan's Labyrinth was a nominee in 2006. Amelie, which is one of Brian's favorite movies, was a nominee in 2001, and I also really enjoyed that movie. So there are lots of great foreign films, and there's a whole world of movies out there, and I want a piece of it. And that's why Babette's Feast is my number 5.
All right, Brad, your number 5.
When you're younger, before you've had a chance to become so jaded, the Academy Awards are meant to, and they certainly did as a child, to represent the great cinematic achievements. If you couldn't guess from our Oscar casts and our plethora of F-bombs during that show's climax, we've become pretty irritated with the pomp and circumstance and the BS that the show has also come to represent. Because, like any award show, any contest, it's ultimately subjective when you're dealing with art, and so there's no real best movie. You're dealing only in favorites. That being said, as a kid, I looked at the Best Picture winners, and they meant a lot to me. And the best pictures in my head were these grand, sweeping epics. And I think David Lean, as a director and filmmaker, really represented the height of the art form in films like Bridge on the River Kwai and Lawrence of Arabia. Those are true Best Picture winners. And you look at those movies, and then you look at something like The King's Speech or Shakespeare in Love or even last year's Spotlight, and they don't really hold up to the titanic accomplishment of something like Lawrence of Arabia and Bridge on the River Kwai. I miss that. What's the word? I miss that memory, of a time when Best Picture truly was a grand achievement. And honestly, okay, now let's peel that onion a little bit. 1927 Wings won Best Picture. That was certainly not the best picture of that year. We all know it's Fritz Lang's Metropolis, an Itmod homework from Darren's past. And that film, being a German movie, wasn't even on the radar of Hollywood during its first Academy Awards. Yeah. So it's always going to be like, you're going to have pundits like ourselves saying like, no. It shouldn't be Spotlight. It should be Mad Max Fury Road.
It should be.
But I dare you to deny me Bridge on the River Kwai or Lawrence of Arabia.
All right. My number 5 in 2012, Claudio Miranda won for Best Cinematography for Life of Pi. In that year, Roger Deakins lensed Skyfall for Sam Mendes. And as for many of his films before, I felt Roger Deakins should have got that Oscar for cinematography because, excuse me, it's Roger Deakins, firstly. Secondly, it looked amazing. But just as important is that this was, if I'm not mistaken, this is like one of the first films Deakins shot on digital, right?
Yep.
And with the argument of digital versus 35 millimeter versus film, there can be an argument made for both halves. But for me, a lot of that argument was swayed to the side of film because there is a texture, an inherent look to movies shot on film that it's hard to recreate, if impossible to recreate, if you're shooting on digital. Yet Roger Deakins finds a way to, and there have been plenty of films shot on digital prior to Roger Deakins lensing Skyfall that look amazing, that look good on digital, but none that would make me say it'll be okay if we never shot on film again. Roger Deakins makes a good case in Skyfall as far as getting those people who say that there are limits to shooting on digital. There's a beauty in film that you can't get if you shoot on digital. But if you look at Skyfall, yes, it doesn't feel like film. Doesn't even look like film. Doesn't have the same texture as film. But those digital files that Roger Deakins captures with those cameras and the way he composes those shots and the way that those shots are enhanced in post to give us the image that we have in the final cut and the final form of that film are just amazing. Amazing. We've talked about this before on the podcast. That scene when he goes and Bond is on the water in those boats, and you have the lanterns, and everything's at night, and it's only lit by those lanterns. That shot is beautiful. The scene where Bond is fighting the guy, and their silhouettes are lit by the neon signs in the background in that building, just amazing. And it's just a testament to the skill of Roger Deakins and what he's able to do with a new tool. In a new format, and to move film forward in shooting in movies. And so I just think it's long overdue for Roger Deakins to be recognized by the Academy Awards. If it never happens, he still will be recognized by the general movie-going public and fans. And so, I guess that it just has to be enough for now. But until then, I would have picked him for the Oscar in 2012 for Skyfall. Brian, you're number 4.
So my number 4 comes, again, this is back in the 90s. This was 98. And we talked about this, I think a few weeks ago. It was your homework, Brad. One of my favorite films, Good Will Hunting. And that would be for Best Screenplay. And that would be Ben Affleck and Matt Damon. So this was Good Will Hunting really hit me at a time in my life when I was really, really deep into my love of film and filmmaking and my desire to be a filmmaker and to be like a screenplay writer. And like I said before during that homework cast, the Good Will Hunting is a film that, watching this movie, it made me realize the type of movies that I wanted to make. So after seeing this film, I just fell in love with the movie, the performers, and Ben Affleck and Matt Damon overall. And seeing them get nominated and kind of sweeping up a lot of the awards, starting with the Golden Globes, and then we get to the Oscars, I was really, really, really rooting to win Best Screenplay. And when they won, it was just a joy for me to see, just because of how much I actually loved that film. And to see these newcomers kind of come onto the scene and be able to win a screenplay, win an Oscar for Best Screenplay, which I've always envisioned myself winning that Oscar for Best Screenplay, and walking up on that stage and, giving my speech and thanking all my fellow dorks.
Oh, yay!
But yeah, and then like just their excitement, like how I talked about with Cuba Gooding Jr., seeing a very young Ben Affleck and Matt Damon on that stage, just not knowing what to say, and actually thanking Cuba Gooding Jr. at one point during their acceptance speech. I mean, you could just see the exuberance and just the excitement that they had winning that award that early in their career, which just basically set them up for who they are now as big players in Hollywood.
What do you think about the conspiracy that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon did not write Good Will Hunting, that it was actually written by William Goldman or Kevin Smith, that it was Harvey Weinstein that used their names as a marketing gimmick to push the film further into the light of Oscar?
I don't necessarily believe that. I never really gave it much thought. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I don't really go into like conspiracy theories, but I've seen interviews and like little short like DVD behind the scenes documentaries where they've interviewed Ben Affleck and Matt Damon recently about just that whole process of working on the script, trying to sell the script. And when you hear them talk about it, it doesn't feel, I mean, of course they are actors, but for me, I don't think that they would be lying about that. Like, I mean, people can call me naive, but I tend not to try to read between the lines of what, people are saying. I mean, that's going on now in the media with like press releases and everything. And, people saying, oh, well, that's bullshit. This is really what's going on. When, in all honesty, nobody really knows what's going on. We just have to take what's given to us. So that's really the way I approach it. I try not to read between the lines or look too deep into what's going on. If somebody tells me that's what it is, then I got no reason to say otherwise. So
maybe you should dive into the blog Will Hunting. It's called Blog Will Hunting.
Blog Will Hunting?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now. Blog Will Hunting.
All right, Lisa, your number 4?
My number 4 is just a general topic of an Oscar snub, and that is the lack of a Best Picture or Best Director win for Quentin Tarantino. He has been he's had films Django Unchained and Inglourious Bastards and Pulp Fiction have all been nominated for Best Picture. He was nominated for Best Director for Inglourious Bastards and Pulp Fiction, but the only Oscar statues he has gotten to hold are those of Best Original Screenplay for Django Unchained and Pulp Fiction. And to me, I feel like he is an influential director. He's a taste maker. There's nobody who's doing what he does. Granted, a lot of what he does is a lot of genre pastiche a lot of homage of what is considered lesser genres, non-Oscar worthy genres. But I think that he manages to make something that is completely original and something that goes beyond just the screenplay. It is his direction, his style of dialogue, and the rapid fire delivery of lines, and just the aesthetic of his films that make Quentin Tarantino the huge figure he is in cinema. I mean, we cannot go a fistful, thanks to Brian, without bringing up Quentin Tarantino at least once. And your favorite films, Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2,
there you go.
They've been nominated for jack fuck all.
Some of that shit.
Yeah, so
Damn it.
So I think that this has to do with a lot of his influences being considered lesser genres, and that kind of tainting his overall credibility as a director in the eyes of the Academy. But I think that he is more than worthy of a Best Director.
He's in good company. Hitchcock, Kubrick, Orson Welles.
That's true. That's
Wow,
true.
Orson Welles number 1. Wow.
All right. Brad, you're number 4.
For my number 4, I was looking at the history.
He won Best Director for Psycho. Oh, no, nominee.
No, nominee. He never won.
Never mind.
What the fuck was I saying?
Sorry.
Number 4.
Number 4, I was looking at the history of the Academy Awards, and you know, so often when people talk about the great eras of cinema, they look to the 1970s and say, you know, that was real cinema. That the 80s and 90s are watered down experiences compared to what that decade produced. And when you look at the Best Picture winners of the 1980s, Gandhi, Out of Africa, Driving Miss Daisy, Platoon, they are very what I would call movie types of stories, where they feel like they could not possibly exist in the real world, that they feel that the hand of the screenwriter is felt manipulating the strings of the narrative. I mixed like several metaphors there. That's wonderful. And from the 80s into the 90s into the early aughts, and maybe even into our current state, I feel like there is a lack of rawness to the Best Picture winners, a lack of reality. And I look at 1986's Platoon, the Oliver Stone Vietnam War movie, and I can't help but just say, damn it, The Deer Hunter did that way better in 1978. Yeah. And in particular, in the performances, Christopher Walken, who would go on to become kind of a caricature of himself, but you look at him in The Deer Hunter, especially just contrasting his opening scenes with his final moments on Earth. Yikes. And the climax of The Deer Hunter, and the transformation that Christopher Walken goes through in that movie feels incredibly honest to the wound that was the Vietnam War in this country. And again, comparing it to something like Platoon, where it just feels like, and I don't mean to slight Oliver Stone as a Vietnam vet himself, but there's just a veneer of falsehood to a lot of the 1980s Best Picture winners, in my humble or not so humble opinion. And when people look and talk about the 1970s as this golden age, I understand it. I don't necessarily think it's 100% true when you look at all of the cinema that is being produced in the last 40 years. But I do get where that criticism and that fond memory is coming from. Yeah. But The Deer Hunter is just such an amazing story, both from a technical level of direction and cinematography, but also just from straight up performance.
Yeah. All right. My number 4 in 2002, Nowhere in Africa won the Academy Award for Best Foreign Language Film, and I would have picked Zhang Yimou's Hero, and Brad and I just saw his most recent film, The Great Wall, in theaters a few days ago. By no means the same type of film as Hero, not as good as Hero, but there are a lot of things in common with that film. But Hero has been a favorite film of mine initially when I first saw it. Firstly, because of the cinematography by Christopher Doyle. But revisiting that film later on in life, and the story that it tells, and in the way that it tells that story, and then those characters in the film, is something that I've always gravitated towards and continue to go back to. Jet Li is in the film, Donnie Yen is in the film, Michelle Yeoh is in the film, Zhang Ziyi is in the film. There are a bunch of famous Hong Kong actors in that movie, and just the way that Zhang Yimou frames them, and he and Christopher Doyle, and just the way they shoot that film, and the quietness of that film. There's some action scenes in it, but it is not a straight up martial arts epic, like something more in Donnie Yen or Jet Li's usual wheelhouse. And actually, Donnie Yen and both Jet Li play really restrained characters compared to things like Fist of Legend or Special ID. These characters in this film are more in line with something Donnie Yen plays as like in Ip Man, or I don't even know if Jet Li has been as quiet and contemplative as he is in this film as the hero Nameless. And so, but just the way that the movie and these action scenes, and even the dialogue scenes, are shot is very dreamlike quality, and that is also in part because of the way that the film is shot and the color palette that's used. There are these distinctive colors per. So it's about this character, this hero Nameless, who is sent to kill these different assassins or these different people, and he comes back to tell the story of how he killed each person. And so when he's telling a story for each confrontation has a different look, a different mood, a different color palette to it. And there are strikingly bold colors used to differentiate each encounter. I mean, just the way that the movie looks and the way that it feels and how it doesn't feel rushed, but it doesn't feel slow is, I don't know, it's just a testament to the filmmaking and the story, and also the hand of the director. And so all those different elements combined make for a very different, unique, but also pleasurable viewing experience for me. It's a film that it doesn't get a lot of discussion. People don't talk about it a lot, but I think that they should. And I don't know, it's one that I'm very much looking forward to revisiting in light of watching The Great Wall. And I don't know, I wish that movie would have gotten the Academy Award that year, because I think maybe there would have been more discussion following it about the film. So that's going to be my number 4. Brian, your number 3.
So my number 3 is actually going to follow suit with my last pick. Same movie, Good Will Hunting, but this would be for Robin Williams winning for Best Supporting Actor. His first and only Academy Award win. I just thought that this was great. First, I loved his performance in Good Will Hunting. A very subdued, reserved, quiet performance that he gives. Kind of tragic performance too, knowing his backstory, everything with his wife and stuff like that, and knowing Robin Williams and the performances that he has, being very outwardly, very flamboyant in a lot of his comedies. And he's done some dramatic roles as well, but for him to do something like this and to be acknowledged finally, just for his whole body of work, I thought this was a fitting role for him to win for Best Supporting Actor. And I know that year he was up against, famously, Burt Reynolds and Boogie Nights, which Burt Reynolds was really, really good in Boogie Nights. Boogie Nights is a fantastic film, and he was noticeably upset when his name wasn't called. But it was just a joy to see Robin Williams win that award. It's unfortunate that he's no longer with us, but that performance will always live on in that film and his whole body of work. So yeah, Robin Williams for Good Will Hunting.
Lisa, your number 3?
My number 3 is a celebration of musicals that have been Best Picture winners. In particular, West Side Story, which was the
I thought you were
best,
going to say La La Land.
which was the Best Picture winner in 1961. In the 60s, 4 of the 10 Best Picture winners were musicals. Musicals were a genre to be reckoned with. And a lot of the Best Picture musicals were films that I watched at home all of the time, like American in Paris and Sound of Music and My Fair Lady. And sure, there have been Best Picture musicals that have been clunkers, such as Chicago. But I think that the musical genre does what a lot of genre films do, like sci-fi films or horror films, but bring something different to an idea. In the case of musicals, music to an idea to make you look at it in a way you could have never looked at it before. So in terms of of all of the Best Picture musicals, West Side Story I think is it's my personal favorite, and I think is a great example of a musical doing something innovative. The music was composed by Leonard Bernstein, who is a very famous composer, orchestral composer, as well as composer of show tunes and musicals. The lyrics were done by Stephen Sondheim, who is one of my personal favorite composers of musicals. He did Sunday in the Park with George, which was Darren's homework. He did Into the Woods, Passions. But for this, he just did the lyrics, did the libretto. And the choreography was extremely innovative and dynamic. But I think what makes it a lasting film was the fact that it was willing to deal with some really challenging subjects in the 60s, racial tension, gang violence in urban areas. And it does take a very traditional Romeo and Juliet story, but brings these tough issues and manages to tell a really beautiful romance that has some real meat to it, and real drama and tragedy to it, which I think is in direct conflict with La La Land, where I feel like La La Land as a musical is pretty empty in terms of conflict and innovation. And I just don't think... I would love to see a musical be a Best Picture winner. I just don't want it to be La La Land.
All right. Wife Dork. Mental note.
Yes.
Future disco homework assignment.
Oh, you have not seen West Side Story. I'm writing that down. It's so good. And the music is so beautiful. And Natalie Wood's performance is absolutely stunning. This is another instance, though, where she does not do her own singing. So all of the singing is lip syncing, which I've talked in previous episodes. But that just was the way it was in the 60s. But it's amazing. I'm so excited to show it to you one day.
Okay. Brad, you're number 3.
So the 1994 Academy Awards was the first show that I had a lot of stake in. I was desperate for Pulp Fiction to win, and it ultimately lost to Forrest Gump. Yeah. Now, that became a trend going forward, where I would stay up late, I'd watch all the Academy Award nominations, I'd find my favorite movie, and it would lose. I remember being devastated when Titanic won over L.A. Confidential. and then you go forward from there, and you have, Gladiator winning in 2000, A Beautiful Mind, Chicago, Return of the King, $1 Million Baby, Crash. And I remember going into the 2007 Academy Awards race, and my favorite film was No Country for Old Men, but it was going up against Paul W.S. Anderson's... Not Paul W.S. Anderson. Whoa. That'd be a way different show. It was going up against Paul Thomas Anderson's There Will Be Blood. And I, of course, was rooting for my Coen brothers. And No Country for Old Men was just such a unique and departure from really anything we had seen from them in the past. Mm-hmm. But it was just so obvious that There Will Be Blood was going to take it, because that did feel like the epic Best Picture winner in the style of David Lean. But in my heart, No Country was the better film. Mm-hmm. And suddenly, after a decade plus of Brad disappointment, in 2007, the thrill of victory of No Country for Old Men taking home Best Picture was just a tremendous delight for 28-year-old Brad. And it's been, what's kept me going with the Academy Awards since. I continue to watch all the nominees, pick my favorite, and be disappointed. All the way through last year when Spotlight took it over The Revenant. And I imagine that I will be disappointed again this year. But I eagerly anticipate the next 5 years, 7 years, when I will be rewarded, where Hollywood and myself will align and we'll find our favorite films together.
Paul W.S. Anderson's film will win Best Picture?
Yes, when that happens, boom.
All right, my number 3. So this might be a controversial pick for me. In 2003, Sean Penn took home the Oscar for leading performance in Mystic River. And me, I would have given the Oscar to Johnny Depp for his portrayal of Jack Sparrow in Pirates of the Caribbean. I think that Sean Penn is a phenomenal actor, obviously, and Johnny Depp is a really good actor as well. Johnny Depp, later in his career, more recently, has fallen into playing how do you say it? Some variation of the Jack Sparrow type Willy Wonka / Mad Hatter. He's fallen into this really weird box, and I think that's a shame, because he has the ability to go so far with his range. But even with all of his cartoony performances and his characters, I think Jack Sparrow, the character of Jack Sparrow, as Johnny Depp plays him, really is a standout performance to me. Like, I don't know of, it's a unique character, I'll say that. I don't know of another cinematic pirate that acts in the way that Jack Sparrow acts. I like the way that Johnny Depp plays him, and sometimes he's aloof, but ultimately he is very capable and even caring when he needs to be. And, he definitely comes across as someone who takes the position as captain very importantly, all the while seeming like this clueless drunkard. And I really enjoy it. He's an endearing character. Meanwhile, Sean Penn's character in Mystic River, I don't remember too much about him. Granted, there hasn't been sequels to Mystic River where that character returns and you see him a lot. But I will say this, Sean Penn in that film, as far as acting and portraying that character, I don't think in that film he was doing anything that he hadn't done before. It didn't seem like he was doing heavy lifting regarding portraying a character that was far from what he's been doing in the past. Now, again, subsequently since Jack Sparrow, Johnny Depp has been doing characters that are of that ilk. But prior to Jack Sparrow, I don't know that there were characters who came across or if Johnny Depp had done anything similar to that. You know, I look at stuff like him in Dead Man. Is it Dead Man Walking? Dead Man Shoes.
Dead Man Walking.
Dead Man Walking, or even What's Eating Gilbert Grape. You look at Johnny Depp in that film, and then you look at him in Pirates of the Caribbean in this crazy Jack Sparrow character. I really enjoy that character. I really think that he has come a long way, or I really think that he just has range. Even his character in friggin' Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. That's a crazy character. His portrayal and his spin on Hunter S. Thompson. And it could be said that that's kind of similar to his craziness in Jack Sparrow, but it's not if you really look at it. And yeah, these are wild, broad, like character strokes sometimes, but there is nuance in there as well in between the lines, and it's all there. And granted, because he has become sort of a parody of himself lately, it's hard to see that when you look at the character of Jack Sparrow in that first Pirates of the Caribbean film, but it's there. And so I don't know, like I would have given it to Johnny Depp in 2003 because that character also has become so iconic. And so, and it influenced, I could say it's been influential, and it might not have been influential to everybody else, but it definitely has been influential into the rest of his career, for better or for worse. So yeah, I would have given it to Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow in 2003. Brian, you're number 2.
Okay, so my number 2 goes to, this was 2008, and this was a posthumous award. Is that how you say it? Posthumously. All right, that's for Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight. This was, I think, pretty evident, and I was hopeful that he would be recognized. I'm not sure who he was up against in 2008. I don't have the list up here, but I think he was definitely the one that was probably the front runner. A lot of people may have thought that, okay, because he passed away, that, you know, that was giving him like the edge to possibly win it. But I think if you look at that performance with everybody else, you got it, Brad?
Yeah, I got it. The Best Supporting Actor nominations that year were Josh Brolin for Milk, Robert Downey Jr. for Tropic Thunder,
Oh, yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman for Doubt, Heath Ledger for The Dark Knight, and Michael Shannon for Revolutionary Road.
Huh, interesting. Yeah, I saw maybe most of those performances, but it was interesting that year too. I think, and we were starting to start to see a lot more genre pictures, whether it be Best Picture or actors and genre pictures, be nominated for for Academy Awards, and we saw that when Lord of the Rings won in 2003. But with Heath Ledger, what he did in that role, I think, was nothing short of remarkable, and there was a lot of doubters with his casting as being the Joker, but I was sold because I'm always interested in like casting that kind of goes against type, especially when you're dealing with filmmakers who understand filmmaking. And Christopher Nolan at that time, coming off of movies like Memento, Insomnia, the Batman Begins, going into The Dark Knight, you knew that him casting Heath Ledger, regardless of what his past credits were, that he was going to bring something different from what we knew from Jack Nicholson. And from then, I knew that he was bringing something different. And after seeing that performance and then him getting nominated, it was really nice to see him win and to see his family go up on that stage and accept that award for him. I just thought it was just a beautiful moment and something that was well deserved. And I was happy to see that come from a Batman film. You know, a lot of people talked about The Dark Knight being nominated for Best Picture, that it should have been nominated. And I think after this is when they started to open it up from 5 to 10. But for Heath Ledger, this was well deserved. So yeah, that's my number 2.
All right, Lisa, your number 2.
My number 2 celebrates a specific year that has come up already, which astounds me. And that is the year of 1994. And the reason is this. You know, so a lot of people have some complaints about going from 5 to 10 nominees for Best Picture, because then it's just like, does that mean that there are 10 movies that are equally worthy? Or when you open it up to 10, you're definitely going to have some clunkers, like Hacksaw Ridge, right? But there have always, every year, been clunkers. Ghost, for example, was a Best Picture nominee.
Whoa.
Brad's shaking his head. Yeah, I know. I just watched it. It was our Valentine's Day flick at the Alamo. And it's a fun time at the movies. But Best Picture, it is not, even as a nominee. But as I was leafing through our printout of all of the Best Picture nominees, the year 1994, all of the nominees are movies that I actually enjoy. I don't think there's a clunker in the bunch. So the nominees for Best Picture in 1994 were Forrest Gump, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Pulp Fiction, Quiz Show, and Shawshank Redemption. That's 5 amazing movies. And even though Forrest Gump may not have been my particular favorite out of that bunch, I would say that Pulp Fiction is my favorite, followed by Shawshank, followed by Quiz Show, which is a great movie I haven't seen in a long time, but I really enjoyed it in high school. And so I do think that there is hope yet for there to be a year of 10 Best Picture nominees that are potentially amazing. So I look forward to that year.
I think this year comes pretty darn close.
It does, but like I said.
Hacksaw Ridge.
Yeah.
All right, Brad, you're number 2.
Well, my number 2 is the 1990 film Ghost that
What?
Lisa just mentioned.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that was nominated for Best Picture. It lost to Dances with Wolves. But what I love so much about, looking back at the Academy Awards these past 89 years is that by looking at the nominations, you go back in time and you think, what kind of world was that where Ghost was Best Picture and also actually won Best Original Screenplay and Best Supporting Actress for Whoopi Goldberg, who is really, really wonderful in the movie. Lisa and I just saw this at the Alamo Drafthouse last week, and that is such a strange film. It's about Patrick Swayze as this young, vague Wall Street business dude, and his buddy, what's his name? He plays Carl. Tony Goldwyn as his fellow Wall Street Jordan Belfort wannabe character, and Demi Moore, his wife, and that's pretty much it in the entire film. There's like 3 actors plus Whoopi Goldberg, who comes in halfway through after Patrick Swayze is murdered in an alleyway and comes back as a spirit who refuses to step into the light. And for the first half of the movie, you get the sense that there is a mystery, but also you pretty much understand from the moment you see Tony Goldwyn and his humana expression that he's the murderer.
Clearly, because it could not be Demi Moore.
Yeah, because there's only 3 characters in this entire film, so the mystery's going to come back to one of them, and it's not going to be the lady you're making all that pottery with. And the spirit world, this strange land where if you're a good person, a white light opens for you and you walk into it. If you're a bad person, shadow monsters, these 2D creatures make that sound and come pull you down into hell, I guess. And maybe if you're lucky or not so lucky, you avoid both options and roam the earth, and are able to act revenge upon your evil best friend.
Like the crow, you become the crow.
Yeah, the Ghost is basically a Hallmark version of The Crow. It's bonkers to me that this was seen as one of the great films of 1990. But when you peel the layer on that back a bit, it's made by Hollywood royalty. Jerry Zucker, who directed, all the Naked Gun films and Airplane, directed Ghost. The score is by Maurice Jarre, who did, the film's score for Lawrence of Arabia, as well as a dozen other great movies. And it was basically just the Hollywood elite putting out this really bonkers B movie and being rewarded for it. And, Whoopi Goldberg as Oda Mae Brown is such a ridiculous creation, but she's so much fun to watch. Yeah. And she distracts from how mediocre the rest of this movie actually is.
All right. My number 2. And 2000, Julia Roberts won the Academy for Best Lead Actress in Erin Brockovich. I would have given that statue to Ellen Burstyn for her role in Requiem for a Dream. Yeah, that's a really harsh movie, as it should be, as it deals with addiction. And her character, out of all the other characters in the film, for me, is the most tragic. She is a woman she's a mother. Her son is played by Jared Leto, and he also succumbs to drug addiction. And so her character goes through a transformation because not only is she addicted to television, she becomes addicted to methamphetamines, speed. And so it causes her to descend on this downward spiral. And to see her transformation is so heartbreaking. A lot of people will argue that Jennifer Connelly's character of Jared Leto, she's the girlfriend to Jared Leto's character. A lot of people will say her ending is horrific as it is. It is horrific. We'll say that that's like just the most horrific of the film, where she ends up. But I would argue, for me, emotionally, I am devastated the most by Ellen Burstyn's character and where she ends up and what's happening to her, because she has no choice in the matter. She is helpless. Yes, Jennifer Connelly, again, she is in a very horrible situation. She could, at any moment, turn around if she wanted to, if she had enough strength, and run before Keith David answers the door. But she doesn't. But Ellen Burstyn's character is taken against her will and put into a hospital and subjected to electric shock therapy and a whole bunch of other shit. And it is horrible. It is so sad. But the way she plays that character, all the way from the beginning, she's just really nice. I don't want to call her old lady. She's just a really nice older woman who just loves her son, and she just wants the best for her son. And then she has an opportunity to potentially go on TV and put on her nice red dress so she can feel like she's beautiful again and like she matters and feel alive again. But that just takes her on this downward spiral. And it's just so sad to watch her character go through that. But it's sad because of how Ellen Burstyn plays that character. And I really would have wished, I wanted her to win the Academy Award that year. But unfortunately, Julia Roberts got it. Not unfortunately, because I don't want to take any success away from Julia Roberts.
Take it away.
But she won the award instead of Ellen Burstyn. But in my world, in Disco Land, Ellen Burstyn in the year 2000 wins the award for Best Actress. So yeah, that's my number 2. Brian, your number 1.
So my number 1, this is going to be more of a fun pick. A little ridiculous, but I enjoyed every second of it. And I enjoyed the joke afterwards after they won. This would be for 2005, Best Song, 3 6 Mafia.
Oh, yeah.
Wins an Academy Award for their song, It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp, from Hustle and Flow. And, seeing 3 6 Mafia on the stage at the Oscars is something I think you will only see once in a lifetime. And it was glorious. It was hysterical, slightly embarrassing, and everything above. But I enjoyed every second.
And
of
the
it.
Right choice.
It was the right choice. It was absolutely the right choice. And I don't know. It was just great that 3 6 Mafia won an Oscar. Like, that's just absurd to me, but you're right. Like, as far as the best songs, that was, the Hard Out Here for a Pimp was probably the best one of that year. And
Was Whoop That Trick also nominated?
no, I would think
I would argue
Whoop That Trick.
That's-
They should have been nominated twice in that category.
that's the jam.
Yeah, but the best part was that this was before Martin Scorsese won his Academy Award, which he won the following year for The Departed. But I think Chris Rock was hosting the awards that year, and so after they go off stage, it goes back to Chris Rock, and this is a great joke. He's like, 3 6 Mafia, 1. Martin Scorsese, 0. And I thought that was just a brilliant joke. But Martin Scorsese ended up getting his Oscar. But yeah, 3 6 Mafia. They have a gold statue.
All right. Lisa, your number one.
My number one pick is a little 1977 film called Star Wars. And I'm using it as a placeholder of every sci-fi Best Picture nominee that has been snubbed, because a sci-fi film has never, in all 89 Oscars, years of Oscars, has there been a science fiction Best Picture winner. Despite Star Wars being one of the most influential films of all time, it is the second highest grossing film of all time, second to E.T., which is also a science fiction film, which was also a Best Picture nominee, and also a loser, did not take the statue home. There has been a few nominated science fiction films, A Clockwork Orange, as I already mentioned, Star Wars, E.T., and then in 2009, there were actually 2 science fiction Best Picture nominees in District 9 and Avatar. Then following that, since then, there's been Inception in 2010, Gravity and Her in 2013. Though I would argue, to me, I don't feel like Gravity is a science fiction film.
It's got science in it. It's fictional.
But it's not fictional science. I mean,
I bet you there's plenty of fictional science in Gravity.
Martian...
Oh, yeah.
But I still I don't really think that that's a science fiction film.
It's a comedy.
I got this from filmsite.org, bestpictures2.html. It's not a gorgeous site, but it's really interesting to scroll through.
Yeah.
But it includes Mad Max Fury Road. I don't consider that a science fiction film. But Arrival now is our science fiction film, and I think, to me, would be my second choice for Best Picture, but it will not win because science fiction films have not yet to win. There are other genres pointed out on this page that do not take home statues. There has only been one horror film that has been nominated for Best Picture, and that was The Exorcist in 1973.
Psycho.
Rosemary's Baby, Halloween, Alien, and The Shining all were not nominated for Best Picture.
But Hitchcock was nominated for Best Director for Psycho, right?
Right, but this is Best Pictures.
All right.
There's one true horror film that has won Best Picture, and that's Silence of the Lambs in 1991. Also, Hitchcock's first U.S. film and Best Picture winner, Rebecca, may be counted only as the winning suspense thriller. And No Country for Old Men is also a thriller. But yeah, so there's not a lot of love for genre films when it comes to the Academy, but it's genre films that take it home at the box office, and I'm looking forward to maybe something from the MCU taking a statue home. Where they do clean up is the technical awards. Star Wars was the most awarded film of 1997. 1977, excuse me, and it took home for score, of course, John Williams' score, costume design, sound mixing, sound editing, art directing, film editing, and visual effects.
So basically, it was the Fury Road of 77.
It was the Fury Road of 77. But I love genre films, and I would love to see a genre film, particularly a science fiction film, one day getting a gold statue and representing all of us dorks.
Yep.
That's when Paul W.S. Anderson's going to take it.
All right, Brad, your number one.
So for my number one, it is the only time my favorite film of that year actually also coincided with being Best Picture. And I know that I said in 2007 I was really rooting for No Country for Old Men and how happy I was that my favorite in that race won. That still wasn't my favorite film of that year. That would have been David Fincher's Zodiac, or even David Cronenberg's Eastern Promises, or even Russell McCullough's Resident Evil Extinction. But No Country for Old Men got it. But the only time my favorite film of the year also was Best Picture of the Year, in which I was watching the show and I was alive, was 1992, Clint Eastwood's Unforgiven. Deserve ain't got nothing to do with it. The story of William Money, this old gunfighter who has supposedly retired from his bad deeds, but is drawn back in when his family farm, his pig farm, is being destroyed by flu. He has to provide for his two young children, and decides to go on a bounty hunt. After two individuals who cut the faces of a prostitute. And he recruits his one-time shootist pal, Morgan Freeman, into this adventure as well, and comes upon Gene Hackman's ruthless and terrifying little Bill. And at the time, people were talking about how it really subverted all the Western tropes. But honestly, looking back at it, it really just excels in those tropes. It doesn't necessarily go in the direction that 1950s styled Westerns would have you believe. But it is at home in the same genre that produced Sam Peckinpah and his dark ilk. And you can go on and on about the good, the bad, and the ugly, or the outlaw Josie Wales, but for my money, Clint Eastwood reached the pinnacle of that genre with Unforgiven, and there's a reason why he's never gone back to Cowboys again, because there's nothing more to say after he's done that.
Yeah. All right. My number one, I'm going to go back in the past a little bit. Way back to 2015. And
we all know what you're going to say, Darren.
Yeah. So let me just get it over with. My pick for 2015 for Best Picture, obviously, would have been Mad Max Fury Road. So we talked a bit about this on our Oscar cast. Hopefully you've listened to that. If not, go check it out. One of the things that we spoke about was the cultural relevance of these films that do end up getting the award, and where we see those films now in our discussions, if they are even a part of our discussions. And one of the things that I've mentioned was the fact that I'm okay. Would I have loved for Fury Road to win Best Picture last year? Absolutely. But I have no qualms about it not winning, because while they were not able to take home the gold statue that year for that film, I've seen Fury Road in the theater twice this year. Twice. And it is a movie that has become a part of pop culture. When it first came out, that was not something that I was expecting. Now when you go to AMC and you're watching the pre-show, and then they get ready to start the film, and they have the little AMC red dots that look like they have the little get ready, buckle in, if you see something strange, report it, walk to the exit. When they have that little animation coming up, now there's a Fury Road reference there, right in front of the Fast and Furious reference. Like, we won. Like, I won. Fury Road won. I don't see a Spotlight reference when I go to the movie theaters at AMC every time. So
that should be in the suspicious characters one.
Right. So I don't.
Can you imagine a red dot with a little collar?
So yeah, I don't mind. Like, I'm so proud of that film and what it has become. And when I revisit it with other friends and when we talk about it, and to hear Brad and Lisa talk about their experience on their rewatch and the things that they noticed this go around, like, it brings me joy, because in the back of my mind I go, and I haven't had a conversation about Spotlighted, I don't know when, so
since the last Oscars cast.
Exactly. So yeah, but would I have liked for that movie to take the Oscar that year? Yes. But the point that I make and why it's number one on my list isn't specifically put because it did not win. It's on my list as number one because at that time I would have liked for it to win, but right now, at this point, a year later, removed, it's still, that movie feels like it won to me, because in a way it did. And so I couldn't be more happy. Like Lisa says, it's one of those movies that if it comes up in the theaters again, I feel like I have to watch it, because I don't know if that's going to be the last time I can watch it in the theaters. But it's continued to live beyond not only its initial release, but it's continued to live beyond the loss of the Academy Award. And so that to me is everything. So yeah, that's my number one, Mad Max Fury Road. Plus I just had to have an excuse to talk about that movie again. So hit us up on social media to let us know what your Fistful of Oscars, whether it be snubs or whether it be past wins like Brian's list, or anything in between. Brian, tell the people where they can find you.
You can find me at The Turtle Dork, at The Turtle Dork 1, at Brian William Young, on all social medias.
Wife Dork.
You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at Sidewalk Siren.
Brad Gullickson, Mouth Dork.
All right. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, Untapped, at Mouth Dork.
And you can find me, Darren Smith, the Disco Dork, on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And you can find my review, or my 3-star review, 4-star review, or whatever review for Get Out on Letterboxd, also at the Disco Dork. And so that's going to do it for us. Thank you all for listening. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We hope you enjoyed the Karan Kusama interview. We hope you enjoyed the Homework cast. We hope you listened to our Oscar cast. And we hope you enjoyed this episode. So yeah, that's going to do it for us. Go watch some movies. Go do some fun shit. And until next time.